Today's review is on Chapter 4 of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I really love this chapter, I'm going to try to make it brief, a lot more brief than my previous commentary. So this chapter starts off, what we reviewed was really the principle of becoming genuinely interested in other people. And I really like this because it sounds logical that it's going to help you win friends and real friends. And to start off in the beginning of the chapter, so let me just tell you the way that this chapter is written. It is chapter 4, but it's part of section 2 of the book. And the section 2 starts off with, it's called part 2, 6 ways to make people like you. So this chapter 4 is actually the first of those 6 ways. And it starts off with this comment that says, do this and you'll be welcome anywhere. So in the beginning, he talks about a dog being a very genuine, friendly being in the world, right? The dog has no ulterior motives. He doesn't want to sell you any real estate, and he doesn't want to marry you. Okay, which I think is a little bit comical, but it's true, right? A dog doesn't care anything that you can give him. Maybe they'll want you to take him out to go to the bathroom, take him on a walk, but it doesn't matter. They're gonna love you no matter what, right? And Dale Carnegie does say that a dog makes his living by giving you nothing but love. And there's actually a comment that I did want to share in this section. Dale Carnegie is talking about his dog Tippy, who passed away in a tragic moment in young Dale's life. And he's kind of talking to Tippy, and he says, you didn't read any books on psychology, but you did it all by some kind of divine instinct. This is the way that you brought love about you and genuinely were interested in other people. And he says this is really interesting, and I highlighted this point, is that he said you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. And he goes on to repeat that. And he mentions this is an important fact that I totally agree in, is that other people, doesn't matter how much time you spend in your life trying to get someone to be interested in you. He says, Dale Carnegie says, they are interested in themselves. They as in others, not yourself, right? Other people are more interested in themselves all day long, right? And then he even brings up an example of a study that a telephone company did, which found that the pronoun I was the most used word in any phone conversation. And it's funny, he brings up this question. I want to ask this to all of you, and you can add it in your response to the comments. But he says, when you see a grouped photograph that you are in, whose picture do you look at first? And I think you know the answer to that, but I want to take that a little step farther in this world of selfies and posting to social media. When you take a group photo, which one do you use to post to social media? Now, if you're like me, you look for the one you look best in. And then from there, you start to make sure that the other people in the group, in the picture, don't have their eyes shut or making some really weird face or something. But you will first search for what are the best pictures of yourself, and then make sure that the other people in the picture don't look too terrible. But if you're like me, in most cases, you will sacrifice other people's charisma in the photo just to make sure your own photo looks the best. Next, the author goes on to talk about Alfred Adler, a famous Viennese psychologist. And he wrote a book called What Life Should Mean to You. And in the book, he puts this really interesting quote, and I highlighted this. It is the individual who is not interested in his fellow men who has the greatest difficulties in life and provides the greatest injuries to others. It is from among such individuals that all human failures spring. And he even goes on to repeat this in the book. So I'm just going to repeat it for you as well. It is the individual who is not interested in his fellow men who has the greatest difficulties in life and provides the greatest injury to others. It is from among such individuals that all human failures spring. Now I'm going to go into a couple of examples that the author brings up in the book. So he talks about a magician, Mr. Thurston, and he grew up poor. He had no formal education, but he had two aspects about him that made him very successful. And the first one was that he had a really great ability to bring his personality across on stage. Right? He was a master showman. But the second thing, which is what he really wanted to point out in this book, was that Mr. Thurston had a genuine interest in people. And he goes on to say, provides a quote from Mr. Thurston saying, "I am grateful because of these people that come to see me." So he's talking about the audience. That's what the magician, Mr. Thurston, was saying. He's grateful because of the people that come to see him. They make it possible for me to make my living in a very agreeable way. I'm going to give them the very best I possibly can. And he was comparing that to other fellow performers who really looked down upon their audiences and thought that they were putting a fast one over them with their magic tricks. But Mr. Thurston was different, and that was a very strong aspect that was correlated to his success, is being genuinely interested in his audience, in the people. The next interesting story that the author shares is about President Roosevelt and how he took interest in the people all around him that worked at the White House and on his staff and on the White House yards. And he gives an example of a valet named James E. Amos, how he noticed President Roosevelt really take interest in him and his wife and just little trivial things. So one day that the Amos's wife was asking about flowers, a bob white in particular, and President Roosevelt really gave her a lot of time and care in explaining what it was, and even phoned them up on a future date just randomly out of the blue and said, "Hey, by the way, let your wife know that there is a bob white right outside your kitchen window. Take a look at it." And it was these little type of things that really made President Roosevelt stand out, that he really cared about everyone else around him with a genuine interest. And here's another really great quote. The author says, "If we want to make friends, let's put ourselves out to do things for other people. Things that require time, energy, unselfishness, and thoughtfulness." So really, if we're going out of our way to help and take care of others, that is what he's saying is more genuine. And he also throws out another great example of the Duke of Windsor back when he was the Prince of Wales. He was scheduled for a tour of South Africa, and before he went there, or South America, sorry, and before he went there on this particular tour, he spent months studying Spanish so that he could make public talks in the language of the country, and the people loved him for that. And I have a personal example that back when I was living in Japan and I was leading teams in both Japan and Korea, I used to have to travel to Korea quite a bit, and I didn't understand Korean whatsoever and communicated fully in English whenever I went there. But I decided I really wanted to take interest in the people, their language, and I put in a lot of work into studying, took classes on conversational Korean, and I was good enough to get in a taxi and give directions where to go, order food at a restaurant, ask where the bathroom was, and other small conversational capabilities in the language was where I got to. But the people loved it, and it really made my time going into Korea much more enjoyable rather than just a regular business trip. Another interesting point that the author says is, he says, if we want to make friends, let's greet people with animation and enthusiasm. And he goes on to give some examples of telephone operators and how they were trained to really be enthusiastic in dealing with people on the phone. But I think that's completely true, that if we greet people and if you walk into the office or someone comes up to your door, if you greet them with animation and enthusiasm, it's going to make that other person feel a lot more welcome. If you're walking into an office and you greet everyone with animation and enthusiasm, you're going to make other people think you want to be there. And you want to be around them. And it will also just really brighten up the atmosphere. Another great quote that a quote from the author that I really want to share is that he says, "As with every other principle of human relations, we must be sincere. It must pay off not only for the person showing the interest, but for the person receiving the attention. It's a two-way street. Both parties benefit." So he was giving a lot of examples of how people, salespeople, for example, salespeople's stories were getting benefit from showing genuine interest and winning business deals with them. But he's trying to say is that we need to be sincere about this, not just trying to use people to get something that we want out of them, but really it should be a situation where both parties benefit, right? Where you are showing genuine interest and enthusiasm towards others for the benefit of getting them to either work with you, collaborate with you, make the environment generally overall better, and then benefit them for you offering help to go out of your way to do something extra that you maybe not normally would have done, so that both parties benefit. The last personal example I want to give, and I would love to hear any comments or ideas from anyone here watching this video, is on informational interviews. Because recently I was in the job search market and trying to reach out to people in the industry, people with similar career backgrounds, to get some learnings and mentors out there to give me advice in the industry on my job search journey. And I would write in LinkedIn, I would write these messages when you're trying to connect with someone about really wanting to not try to find a way into that particular company, but really to interview and learn about that person, their experience in their career, and their experience in the current company and industry that they work in. So for example, I wrote, and this is what I would love to hear your feedback if you have something better, but if you know on LinkedIn, sometimes when you connect, you have a limited amount of characters you can write. So what I put in this one short one, where I think I had a limit of 300 characters, I said to the person's name, so-and-so, "Thank you for connecting with me on LinkedIn. If you have 30 minutes sometime next week, I'd love to talk with you about your experience in finance, your current role, and catch some insights from you on finance planning and analysis in the tech industry. Thank you, my name." And another one that was a little bit longer, I said, "Thank you for connecting with me on LinkedIn. As I mentioned in my connect request mail, I'm in the job search, in the job market and searching for mentors in the business operations community. If you have 30 minutes free in the coming weeks, I'd love to hear about your current role, trends in the tech industry, where business operations is transforming organizations, and skill sets you think are valuable in meeting the demand on those trends. Thank you for accepting the connection. My name." Those are examples of how I'm trying to show I'm genuinely interested in the other person, want to learn about them, their career, history, aspirations, their current environment, and also maybe some of their insights on the industry that I was looking for jobs in. Now, if you have any examples, I would love to hear them, see them in the comments. As I mentioned, these were both examples of trying to connect with someone on LinkedIn. The first one was where I had a limit of 300 characters. The other one, I had a little bit longer of space to work with. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. So this is going to conclude the commentary for chapter 4. And just to remind you, once again, the concept for this chapter was to become genuinely interested in other people. Thank you.